Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll show you the systems I use to save up almost $10,000 before I ORD. These systems take into account the psychology of saving and investing, and you don't even have to track every single cent unless you want to. I'll go over why you should manage your money, some basic personal finance principles, and also the accounts and brokerages that I use to invest and save my money. Hi everyone, I'm Gaius, a Singaporean in my second year of national service waiting to study at the National University of Singapore in 2021. And trust me, I understand. As an NSF, it's difficult to manage money, with how bland, tasteless, or even disgusting the cookhouse food can be. It's easy to end up splurging on food deliveries daily. In fact, even to this day, I still order food deliveries every single time I'm on duty. Without fail. Every single time. However, national service can also be a productive time where you learn new skills and develop fiscal discipline. So let me show you how I've been managing my money. If there's a specific part you're interested in, feel free to skip around using the timestamps in the description. Okay, so first of all, I want to cover why you should even manage your money. I think there are three main reasons you should manage your money now. So the first reason is national service is the last time you have to save almost your entire income. During national service, regardless of whether or not you're staying in or staying out, it's very likely that you have very little expenses. You can save money on meals by eating in camp or at home, and this means that you can potentially save close to your entire NS allowance. And if your superiors allow you to moonlight, you could even save that entire external pay. The second reason is for financial independence. The money you accumulate when you're younger means a lot more than when you're older. In fact, most Singaporeans don't even have $10,000 saved up as working adults. I know this because I've spoke to many adults and many of my friends who have started working. I'm sure most of you know how compound interest works, but basically if you earn 7% interest on your money by investing a small sum every month, which I'll talk more about later, the difference between 10, 20 and 30 years is enormous. What this means is that the earlier you start thinking about your finances, the better a position you will be in maybe 10, 15 years down the road once you consider retiring early. So whether or not you think that the money you have now is significant matters not, because the fact is if you invest wisely and you allow your money to compound, which we'll talk more about later, the earlier you start, the better it is for you. And if you ever want to quit your job and pursue your passions and your hopes and dreams, or if you just want to slack off at home, I don't judge, you probably want to start thinking about your finances as early as right now. So the third reason I think you should manage your money is that it cultivates good financial habits even before you start working, where you actually need to manage a larger sum of money, because obviously your measly NS allowance is nothing compared to a full-time working adult salary. So changing your spending habits honestly takes a lot of time and effort. It's easy to overspend unconsciously unless you diligently track your finances, and as a working adult you'll be very stressed, and it's very unlikely that you have the time or energy to track your finances meticulously. So I personally don't track my finances like to the cent anymore, but I recommend everyone try it for at least 1 month, because it's so difficult to be conscious about your spending unless you actually put it to pen and paper. Then you can see how much you're spending on every single thing. And it puts it into perspective for you. Am I truly spending on things that significantly increase my happiness? Usually you'll find out that the answer is no. You're spending on silly things like, I don't know, maybe upsize my McDonald's meal or that kind of thing. Things that don't significantly increase your happiness or your quality of life. So, because it's so difficult to change your spending habits, I think it's a good idea to start now while we're managing a smaller sum of money, because the repercussions of mismanaging a larger sum of money, in other words, your salary as a full-time adult, is significantly more consequential, especially when you're thinking about early retirement. Okay, that was a mouthful. I spoke too quickly. That was really, really tiring. Okay, so now that you know why you should manage your money as an NSF, let's talk about some basic personal finance principles. So the first most important principle of personal finance is to always have an emergency fund. So what this is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up in an account somewhere. Personally, I don't have this account because I'll still be studying after this. So at the risk of sounding spoiled and entitled, my parents are actually my emergency fund. However, I do have a sizable amount of money saved up in my Singlife account, which is a high interest insurance linked savings account that I use to store my emergency fund. I also have a Standard Chartered bank account, which means any amount I don't transfer out to spend will be left in that account. So technically, I do have an emergency fund. It's just not 3 to 6 months worth of expenses because since I'm still studying after this, I'm basically still financially reliant on my parents. However, if you are already a working adult or if you're going to start working after NS, do make sure you have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up. It is very important to have an emergency fund because if you invest without an emergency fund, you might have to liquidate your investments in order to pay for your expenses, which would mean that you might have to lock in a loss. So the second principle of personal finance that's very important is paying yourself first. So every month what I do is I set aside half of my SAF allowance for investments. This allows me to set aside money immediately for investing, so I don't have to worry about whether or not I have enough to invest at the end of the month. And it also causes me to be a bit more frugal with my money. So subconsciously, I will always like check my bank account and see how much money I have left and then feel comfortable with spending. So what I do now is I invest first, and so that when I look at my bank account, there's lesser money in it, and because of that, I'm less likely to spend. Yeah, hopefully that will work for you too. I think it works very very well. Um, yeah, let's move on. So the third principle of personal finance that's quite important is invest or die. So it sounds a bit drastic, but the book Salaryman wrote a very good article about this. So basically, inflation happens at almost 2.5% per year. So that means every year goods and services are getting more expensive by 2.5%. Prices are going up. So even though you have the same amount of money saved up, like it doesn't change, in reality the value of your money is decreasing. So your purchasing power is continuing to fall. So what this means is that you want your money to be in places that provide you with more than 2.5% returns in order to beat inflation. And the only place you can probably do that conveniently is the stock market, unless you're starting your own business. Okay, however, there are some caveats, like never invest money you might need in the near future, and make sure you have holding power so you're able to set it aside for the long term. Never withdraw the money unless you need the money because timing the market is a fool's errand. Unless you're stock picking. So if you're a passive investor, don't bother timing the market. You never know what's going to happen. So yeah, I highly advocate being a passive investor. Okay, we've come to the last part, which is a bit more narcissistic. So this is how I personally manage my money. I have 3 bank accounts. Singlife, which is an insurance-linked savings account, the Standard Chartered Jumpstart account, and your typical DBS account that every Singaporean has. To put it simply, Jumpstart is my default account where my pay is deposited. Singlife is where I keep my emergency funds, and my DBS account is where I transfer the money I intend to spend for the month. This forces me to budget monthly because honestly it's not very convenient to withdraw money from the Standard Chartered account, so I'm forced to decide in advance how much I intend to spend for the month and transfer that amount over to my DBS account. So the reason I chose these accounts is because they are all pretty good for their intended purpose. The Singlife account provides 2% interest for up to $10,000, which is what I think the average working adult's emergency funds should look like. The average working adult probably spends somewhere between 1.5 to 3K per month. So multiply that by 3 or 6 and you get about $9,000. So $10,000 is perfect for, you know, just storing your emergency fund. The accrued interest will probably lead you to hit 10,000 sooner or later anyways. So you just need to park $9,000 in there and then kind of let it grow to max out your Singlife benefits. So past 2%, the Singlife account only provides 1% interest. So it's the same as the Standard Chartered account, which is my default account where my pay is deposited. The reason I like the Standard Chartered account is because it's probably one of the few high interest bank accounts in Singapore where there's no special requirements in order for you to get the 1%. For the other accounts like the OCBC 360 and all the other accounts, there's stuff you need to do like salary deposit, which is not a problem, but there's also often stuff like minimum spending. So you're supposed to spend 500 per month on your credit card or something like that in order to get the full interest rate, which I don't like. It makes me tempted to, spend a bit more this month just to hit that, um, spending requirement to get a higher interest rate, which I think is quite silly. So instead, I will just stick with my Jumpstart account. I think it's pretty good. And the reason I use the DBS account is merely because of convenience. DBS is still the most popular bank in Singapore. They proliferate the entire of Singapore. You can find a DBS ATM almost anywhere. So that's why I stick with my ATM account, my DBS account for spending. Okay, so that's the boring saving account part out of the way. Let's get to the more interesting part. So I have both a robo-advisor account and a brokerage account. If you don't understand what these are, they are basically accounts that allow you to invest, kind of like your Amazon or AliExpress account. And these Amazon and AliExpress accounts all charge different delivery fees, which are actually quite important because they can significantly affect your returns in the long term. So if you are intending to start your own brokerage and robo-advisors accounts, make sure you do your own due diligence and don't just copy what I do, because I'm currently using Saxo Markets, which is a good brokerage account, but I can tell the fees are not the best, which is why I'm intending to switch to Interactive Brokers myself. However, the fees change occasionally and the terms might be different when you're signing up. So please do your own due diligence, don't just blindly copy whatever I use. So currently I use AutoWealth and Saxo Markets, but like I said, I'll be switching over to Interactive Brokers. AutoWealth is a robo-advisor, which means that it manages your money for you. It's almost completely hands-off, and I highly recommend it if you are new to investing. So I'll explain investing in a future video because it will make this video way too long. But basically, you can automate investing using a robo-advisor, and a brokerage account allows you to buy exchange-traded funds, which are lists of stocks. So it's diversified within itself. And yeah, both methods of investing are fine. But I highly recommend that you do your own due diligence before you start, or just subscribe to my channel because I'll be making videos on this topic in future. I recommend AutoWealth. Okay, one last thing. So I just want to say that I'm not saying you should dedicate your entire NS life to saving money and live like a monk, because I don't even do that myself. A few days ago, I just went to Sentosa with my girlfriend and we had a really good time. So it's not like I don't spend any money. However, I think some sacrifices have to be made if you wish to achieve financial independence at a young age, and it should start as early as national service. I'll be making more videos on personal finance for sure, so if you're interested in that sort of stuff, do subscribe. I'll also be adding this video to a playlist on personal finance, so if you don't want to subscribe and you want to see what comes next first, before deciding to take the plunge, you can just kind of like add the playlist to your favorites, I think. You can just, I'm not very sure how you can do that, but if you click into my channel and you look for the playlist section, you should be able to find a playlist, and then you should be able to add the playlist to your favorite playlist, and you'll appear in your playlist as well. Yeah. So I'll also really appreciate if you found this video valuable, you share it with your friends, and give this video a thumbs up. So yeah, thank you so much. See you.